So I thought today I'd show you my seed sowing production line from start to finish, and I store all my seeds in an unheated bedroom in a wardrobe, so it's nice and dark. It's a kind of cool corner, doesn't get any sun or anything like that. Put them in wicker baskets. I don't think the wicker baskets matter. And I store them in numerical order. So as a new seed packet arrives, I just write the next number on them, put them in numerical order, which makes it really easy to find because I log them in my database on computer. So that's the way that I store my seeds. I've then got one box of seeds that I keep that's empty, open packets, and those open packets that are going to be used again that year. So for successional sowings, I just find that I know I'm going to use those seeds up this year. So when I'm kind of looking for inspiration in terms of what extra bits and pieces could I sow, then I go through, rummage through that packet of seeds, box of seeds, and try and find something that's already been opened that I'm planning to sort of finish using that year. Right, so then come in here into my workshop, and I've got all my my composts underneath this bench. So I've got the multi-purpose compost, which is just a general multi-purpose from the garden centre, cheapest chips, and Levington's Advanced Seed and Modular Compost for seed starting, which is really expensive. I find that's quite useful because really the seed and modular compost, I don't really use very much of that, whereas I use loads and loads of the multi-purpose. And it's really rough stuff, but it seems to do the job. So then it comes to seed trays, and I really like this one from Containerwise. And the beauty of this one is all these little ribs in it. So, and the big holes at the bottom. So maybe you can see here now, there's little ribs that run here. That makes the roots grow down. They don't curl around like this. They go down to this big hole at the bottom. They air prune when they come into contact with oxygen. That stops those roots growing. The plant sends new roots down. So what you get is lots of roots all going down, not curling round. So they're basically like mini root trainers. I start the vast majority of things in these. Of course, they've got these really lovely holes. You can get your finger through them really simply. And these are just great. But I don't always want to start things in trays of 40. So Containerwise also do these smaller ones for 20 and these for 10. So these are really expensive. So these are almost exactly the same price as these. So I've just cut mine in half and had to do a bit of a repair on them. But I think it's worth it because these are basically half the price of those. And these are really expensive as well. And so I think rather than ever buying those, I wouldn't cut one of these into 4, but I would just buy that and chop it in half because it's got a really nice, easy to cut through rib down there. The challenge with these trays, these two, is that they don't fit in the standard drip tray. So, you haven't got enough space for another one here. I suppose you could just put a 20 and a 10 in there. But anyway, these are my favourite for all seed sowing pretty much. But I don't start my seeds there most of the time. I start my seeds in one of these trays, and I just put sort of 20 odd seeds in here, cover them with a centimetre worth of compost, and prick out from here. So I really like pricking out, and once they're pricked out, then they go under grow lights at this time of year, because we're in February right now. And they'll go under grow lights until probably April time, something like that, in which case they could just go in a greenhouse or a conservatory on a sunny windowsill or something like that. So most of mine though, let's just not get ahead of ourselves before we go pricking out. Let's just prepare one of these trays. Right, so here's this seed starting compost, and you can see it's beautiful and fine. Just needs sort of crumbling up slightly into the tray. I've already done most of it. You don't need to worry about little clumps, but big clumps best broken up. So we'll just smooth it into the tray. And then we want to just firm it down. Now, you can't really over compress compost. It's so spongy and light. So it's really worth giving it a good push down. That'll hold a lot more water, although it'll still drain fine. But it also means that they hold really well in the modules. You know, remember they've got these big holes at the bottom of them. And if you don't compress it down like this, you'll end up with compost falling out the bottom. And it also just makes it really, really simple to push the modules out when it comes to planting time. So that's it all prepared. So now we want to make our planting holes. I always just do it with my fingertips and just making a depression about 1 centimetre deep. Now, almost everything works really well at 1 centimetre deep. You'll see on seed packets all sorts of, you know, different depths for different things. But the beauty of 1 centimetre deep is that everything pushes through from there, so you get no issues with poor germination. Also, 1 centimetre deep, the seeds don't tend to dry out very easily. And that's really useful if you're not going to be sort of watering them every single day. And yeah, it's just nice and reliable. The only exceptions really are things like celery and celeriac, which do better on the surface or with a very slight covering. You'll notice I'm not using anything like vermiculite or perlite or any basically amendments. I'm just using the seed starting compost. Basically, in my mind, you know, the seed companies have come up with a seed starting compost that's ideal for the job, especially if you're paying the extra money for something like Levington's F2S. It's just great as it is. You don't need to change it. You don't need to do anything special. So depressions like that, just drop the seeds in. So I'm going to do radish. I always do it by hand. I find it's really easy. So I'm going to put 4 seeds in now because we're getting some good light levels. Earlier in the year, I'd only put 3. In fact, what I tend to do early in the year is do some with 4, some with 3, some with 2, and then you get a nice kind of staggered harvest over time. Don't worry about getting slightly too many or slightly too few. You know, they all grow. It's going to be fine. And I'm just going to do half a tray of radish, and I'll do half a tray of turnips, and I'll show you some radish actually in a minute when we get to see what's happening in the greenhouse. But it doesn't take very long, and you don't need any special tools. So that's the radish all done. I won't bother showing you the turnips, but they're a little bit smaller and more fiddly. So I do really recommend a really good bright light. I have a halogen light in here, 500 watts, and I used to be the house uplighter, and it's fantastic. You know, you can really see what you're doing, but also when you're doing seed sowing in winter and it's really cold, it keeps you warm. So just smooth it over like that. No need to press it down or anything like that. And that's the radish and the turnips. So let me just look at the label. So in this case, I always like the variety name here, the batch number from my database, and the date. And then on the back, I write the seed packet that I've used. So in this case, I've used seed packet 733, so I'll cross that one out because I had 2 seed packets available. Because I'm putting these in the house to germinate, I always use a drip tray with no holes in it. These are the Wilco ones. They used to be £1, then they were £1.50. I got them for £1. You can't get them anymore. This is the replacement. It's really thin and flimsy and not really recommended, but it'll do a push. but these containerised trays just fit beautifully in there. So now I'm going to do cucumbers and courgettes, and I like to do them in these 6-cell trays. They'll last for, you know, quite a few weeks in these. They might not even need potting on depending on where you're planting them. In my case, mine are going into the greenhouse in April. I'll start heating the greenhouse in April. Again, just firm the compost down, refill it, and that's all you need to do. So we just need to make holes, maybe about 1.5 centimetre deep in this case, so not much deeper than before. So these are the cucumber seeds. I'm just going to drop those in there. Some people fuss about having them on the edge because they think that right on the edge like that, planted, they're less likely to rot. I've never found it really to be an issue. I'm going to put 2 in one of those just because I've got 4 seeds and I'm not going to be sowing anymore. And then the courgette seeds, pretty much the same, a bit bigger. And so I just pop those in. I will put those on the side. And again, I'm just going to pop 2 of those in because we've got lots of these. And I do want to make sure that I get 3 plants germinating. I'll just snip off the any that are surplus to requirements later on. That's done. I always like to keep my workspace clean, so I shake it back. And now we're just going to do some Asian greens. So just fill this up. No need to fuss. And then just press that down a little bit with a spare tray. So the only one I've got is this one. There we go. So you might be able to see I've got 2 tatsois in here because I've got 2 seed packets. So one, if you look on the back, is seed packet 891, this one, and this is seed pack 742, this one. So I'm not quite sure whether what germination is going to be like with this older packet, and so I need to keep track of that to see whether I can continue using it or whether I need to switch over to this new one. I do sometimes repackage something like this. I don't really like these little tiny packets here. Whoops, can't see it. These little tiny packets. I much prefer to just put them in a Mylar bag. And then we're just sprinkling these onto the surface here. You know, you can put them in quite high density because you're going to be pricking out when they're really small. I really like Komatsuma, so I'm just going to do 2 little sections of Komatsuma, and there we go. And if you can see here, it says red tatsoi. It isn't red tatsoi, it's just a red pak choi, so don't get excited. I've never found an actual red tatsoi, but that's how it was labelled. And then again, these are about 1 centimetre deep, so I'm just sprinkling some compost over the top there. And I will then just sort of run my hand over it, like that. Tap it, and we're done. So I just do one more example, and this time we're going to do leeks. Basically exactly the same thing, so I won't repeat it. Prepare your tray. So all leeks and onions and shallots grown from seed, they all do well multi-sown, so that's what I'm going to do today. And so again, what we need is holes about 1 centimetre deep. I'm very fond of the packaging from Moles, a Mylar bag with a good seal on it, and foil packaging. So you can't really get better than that. I'm just going to rip this foil and actually just empty it into the mylar bag, because otherwise it's just too fiddly. And again, just by hand, I'm going to do 4 seeds per module. And again, you don't need to fuss over it a lot. You know, if you get 3, that's fine. If you get 5, that's going to be fine. You're just going to get slightly smaller leeks if you do 5, slightly bigger leeks if you do 3. So kind of 4 is a good one to do. You probably get only 3 germinating anyway. And then just like before, just drop some compost on, smooth it off, and we're done. So that is seed sowing. Let's look at seed germination, and the first thing is we've got to water these. So I've actually seen people do that. Don't do that. So I like to just give them a good soak in with one of these little bottle top watering things, and yeah, give them enough water to last them sort of 3 or 4 days probably, and then come back and give them a bit more. Now I've also seen people fully saturate these trays with bottom watering. I really don't recommend you do that. It'll take forever for those trays to dry out properly, and the result of that is often damping off and all that sort of thing. So no need to do that. You can feel it's quite heavy once you've watered it. Pretty much that whole bottle of water went into that tray, and yeah, as I say, it'll be like 3 or 4 days before these need watering again, maybe as many as 7 days depending on how cool you germinate them. So yeah, if you're doing the courgettes and the cucumbers, you could use slightly warmer water. So again, we don't need a huge amount of water when we're watering these courgettes and cucumbers. That's probably why some people have an issue with the seeds rotting, just over watering them. Generally speaking, you don't really need to soak anything. I'm trying to think of anything that I've soaked. Not peas, not anything really. Everything is fine just with a good soaking like this. And as soon as the seeds get moisture, come into contact with water, off they go. So this is my seed starting shelf unit. It's in a dark bedroom, that's why the light flashes on. I like it like this because it's temperature stable. It stays about sort of 16 to 18 degrees centigrade pretty much all the time, apart from in summer when it'll be like up in the 20s, but we won't probably start things in here there. I do just have a sticky sheet here just in case of any fungus gnat problems, just as an early warning system basically, but we haven't had any of those for a few years. But anyway, it's just a good insurance policy. And yeah, so a few days later we'll start to see some seedlings. And I start anything that likes it a bit warmer, like the cucumbers and the courgettes, in the conservatory. For peppers or something like that, then I might put a little propagator lid over the top, just to keep it really moist, and definitely for things like celeriac and celery. But actually most of the time I don't bother with that, yeah, and they do just fine in here. So there's some cucumbers just popping up there, and some little tomatoes that just germinated in the conservatory. They don't mind the swinging temperature so much. And then anything that likes it warm will go under grow lights in the conservatory, or even better actually, in that cool unheated bedroom. Conservatory can often get a little bit too hot for things, whereas the bedroom, being nice and cool and unheated, windows open all the time, keeps pretty much the ideal temperature under grow lights. But yeah, these peppers are liking it good enough. And anything that doesn't mind it cool goes in the greenhouse. So, you know, we've got it's frost-free in this greenhouse. We've got spinach, leeks, peas, little brassicas, leeks that have just been potted on, cauliflowers, red cabbages, celery, spring cabbages, what are those? Savoy cabbages, kales, calabrese, peas, lettuces, loads of strawberry plants, onions, peas, more onions, and shallots. And early in the year, I do tend to top and tail the day with these grow lights. So I'll probably start them at 7 o'clock and switch them off at 9 o'clock, and start them again at sort of 3 o'clock and switch them off at 5 o'clock. And that just gives them a longer day length, so they think they're in sort of April time or May time rather than in sort of January or February. So every month I do a detailed sowing guide going through everything that I'm sowing and growing that month. And of course I've got my ebook as well, which you can find a link to down below, and that has got a comprehensive basics of gardening skills section and an advanced gardening skills section as well as detailed guides to all of the varieties and all types of veg and fruit that I grow. And I also have a weekly newsletter which you might like to check out, and that goes through all the kind of topical information that's relevant to that week and that month. So information on what to sow and what to pot on and plant, etc., as well as information on the types of pests and challenges that you might be facing at specific times of year. So yeah, you can find that link to that down below as well. So my name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.